My name is Beverly McIver, and I'm a professor of the practice here at Duke, where I teach painting. I'm also a practicing artist. I'm a painter, which I love and which I teach. And I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, in a housing project that was called Morningside Homes. They tore it down, but it's where I grew up in the 80s, or excuse me, 70s. Well, in 1979, the KKK came to our neighborhood and shot and killed 5 people right in front of our apartment. So my mother was standing at the kitchen window, and she witnessed the whole thing and had to testify. She was subpoenaed to testify against the KKK. So fortunate for me, I had a job. So this was over a weekend, and I was across town on Battleground Avenue working at McDonald's. But my mother sent a car to pick me up, taxi that is, because I had grown up all my life poor. And just like my students believe today, if you're going to be an artist, you're going to be poor. And nobody wants to repeat that if they can help it. So I was not interested in being an artist. But what I was interested in being was a professional clown. So I tried, like that's any better. I don't know. My mother was horrified. So, but anyway, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus came to town, to the Greensboro Coliseum, and they were auditioning people to be clowns and go to school, learn how to, be a clown. And since I had done clowning in high school, which I loved because there was such a liberation with, the mask, and the costume, the outfit, all of that, I went to the Coliseum to try out. What I didn't know is that at that time, they were not accepting blacks. You see me, there's a picture of a newspaper article in Greensboro that's, you see all of us in line trying out to be a clown. I'm the only black, and so they didn't accept, they weren't accepting black people, and they actually weren't accepting women. And the women that were part of the circus were actually men dressed as women. Okay, who knew, right? I mean, that's so me to pick the wrong thing. So needless to say, I tried out, I didn't get it, and I went to graduate school at Penn State and got my master's degree in painting. My family, well, my mother was a domestic worker in Greensboro, so initially she was catching the bus across town before we had a car. She was catching the bus, going across town to Elm Street, and where the rich, Starmount, where all the rich people live, and rich white people, that is. And she would go and clean their houses. And occasionally she would bring me along because she couldn't leave me at home because I was sick, was out of school, and I would just sit and watch her clean. But basically what I was doing, I was watching and seeing what kind of furniture the people had in their house, how they had their house set up, and just the whole 9 yards. And ironically, when I was able to buy my first house and set it up, I wanted it to look just like the white people's houses that I had seen as a child, because that was my marker for success. So I went to the thrift store and I bought wingback chairs and, stuff that's not even comfortable, a sofa table. What is that for? So you can bend your neck and reach behind the table. What's that for? So So I set my house up just like I had seen it, and for years I didn't even know where that had come from. But then as I, lived a little bit longer, I was like, this furniture isn't really me. So that was one thing, but my mother worked hard and she was very, very good at what she did. And she always says, regardless of what you do it to the best of your ability. So I have embodied her caregiving, and her love for other people, forgive everybody. I'm a little short on that, just saying. So that's my mother. So my mother was married to my two sisters' father, and who I assume was my father. Anyway, he left when we were 3. I was 3 or 2. He left, and we never saw him again. And so he wasn't present. And so I think I was 16 or 17, and I was standing in the kitchen with my mother, and she said, I have something to tell you. And so I said, what? We used to have this running joke where we would say, we're no kin to the McIvers. We would say that all the time and then laugh. So I said, what? We're no kin to the McIvers? And she said, what? How did you know? And I said, what? What are you talking about? And she said, your dad is standing at the door. So I literally turned around in the small kitchen, and there was this big man, that weighed maybe 250, 300 pounds, standing at the door with a taxi cab hat on. And that's how I met my dad. My two sisters, Ronnie and Renee. Ronnie's the middle. I'm the baby of the family. And my older sister, Renee, is mentally disabled. So simply what that means is that she has the mindset of a 3rd grader, even though she's 61 today, and has epilepsy. So she's always been, the person that needed the most attention in our family. And, my mother would always yield to her needs first. But when my mother died about 12 or 13 years ago, she asked me before she died if I would be Renee's legal guardian. I call her Rennie. And so I thought, oh, well, I'll be rich by then and I can farm it out. I'll hire somebody to take care of Renee. Wrong. My mother dies, and I'm actually living in New York City, being an artist, and Renee's like, well, I want to go home with you. And I was like, ah! So I had just negotiated with Arizona State to only teach 1 semester. I lived 1 semester in New York City and 1 semester in Arizona, but I just couldn't negotiate. I couldn't work that out with Renee because rent prices in New York are so expensive, of course. So Renee and I moved back full-time to Arizona and lived together. Actually, that happened when I was a Radcliffe Fellow at Harvard. And the filmmakers, Gene Jordan and Steve Asher, Gene was was a Radcliffe Fellow also, who had a studio just across from where I was. And she was like, I love your work. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. And my mother was still alive. So this must have been in, maybe 1993 or 4. And she said, I want to make a movie about your painting and your painting process because it reminds me of film stills. And I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't think very much about it because I was like, yeah, okay. And they followed us for 6 years, me and Renee. this film, is like an HBO documentary. I mean, I was thinking it was homegrown, right? Let me just get that straight. So, I didn't look great in it. A lot of time I wasn't wearing a bra. It's for my breast reduction too. So, I look like a hot mess. Anyway. So anyway, it goes to HBO and HBO loves it. And it's on HBO playing for like 2 years. And then it goes to Amazon. But before it left HBO, it was nominated for an Emmy, which is like unbelievable, right? And then it went to, currently it's on Amazon Prime. Well, I think it's really important to keep in mind that my first love was clowning in high school. I mean, I actually wanted to be a professional clown. Okay, I see how ridiculous that is now, but hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? Because I thought it was my way out, because I could disguise who I was, as a Black child, as someone who's growing up in poverty, on welfare, in the projects. So, so when that didn't work out, I went to undergraduate at North Carolina Central University, where I met a lovely, lovely woman by the name of Elizabeth Lentz, who was my painting teacher and who believed in me like no one ever had believed in me. And she said, if you work hard at this painting, I think you can be good at it. And I was like, really? And then she would invite me over to her house on the weekends and I would paint with her. I mean, it's just a really lovely mentorship. And so I just painted, and she kept saying, keep painting, keep painting. So I kept making paintings, and then I graduated from NCCU and went to graduate school at Penn State, where I met Richard Mayhew, an African-American who, he's still alive. He's like 97 and living out in California. He's a landscape and portrait painter. So he was the reason that I went to Penn State. What I didn't know was he only had 1 more year at Penn State before he retired. So I really didn't get to work with him, but I worked with him enough for him to instill that, just keep on painting, keep doing your work, regardless of what's selling, regardless of what the outside world is doing. A friend of mine just said this to me, which I thought was lovely. It's like, when the art world is ready for you, they will come and seek you out. So don't be chasing them down, because it doesn't work that way. So I applied for the American Academy in Rome, right? So the chances of a visual artist getting it, even though they give it to 5 visual artists a year, but they have like 2,500 applications just in that venue of visual art. So I actually applied. I was like, there's no chance. It was actually my second time applying. I'd applied before and was a finalist, but still didn't get it, right? So I was like, whatever. Duke will think I applied for it. I mean, they'll know I look, that I did it, and that'll be good enough. Well, I go to New York, because I'm now a finalist for the American Academy, and I go to an interview for the American Academy of Art. And I'm like, honestly, I was like, shit, I don't know shit about Rome, because I had never been to Rome. And I was like, how am I going to convince them that I need to go to Rome? Because in my head, I was like, I just need a break. It could be Paris. It could be Germany. I don't care. Just get me out of here, right? And so they were asking me questions and trying to figure out. And I was talking to them. The title of my proposal was Impact of Place, right? And I was saying, for me as a Black woman to have the opportunity to go to Europe, to go to Rome, and see how that would impact me. How would that change who I am as a human being? So anyway, I get the prize. I'm standing in the airport in New York City, flying back, and somebody called, like, hey, yeah, So, and then they say, you have the Rome prize. And I was like, what? Oh my God. And instantly I was like, I can't go to Rome. This is horrible. Who's it? And I actively started trying to figure out how I could get hit by a car or like something to prevent me from getting on that plane. Because it was only like a 3-month, it was only like a 3-month period before you had to fly on over. It was like trying to figure out, maybe I take some sleeping pill, just like stressed out, talking to all my friends, don't make me go, please, please. My friends were like, you better pull yourself together. Pull yourself together. It's a great opportunity. Don't let me have to slap you. You just go on over there and be you, right? So, but I went and, I was given, I had to leave my cats behind, my house behind, everything that was familiar to me. And it just made me sad. So I went, and for the first month I was in Italy, I was completely depressed. In fact, there's a painting right there, over there on the floor that I made with my first month in Italy, which you can clearly see that I had gone down. See this? That's me in the bed, in my twin size bed at the American Academy. Okay? She was depressed. So, but after that month, and I found out that, my father could survive without me. My sister Renee, who, still legal guardian for her, she could survive without me. My cats were doing fine. And I just started focusing on myself. So it brought me full circle in a lot of ways because, just realized that my whole life I had been caretaking for somebody. And now all of a sudden I had to figure out who I was as a human being, as an artist, without caretaking. And so it was quite challenging. But, Rome helped me discover myself. And when it was time, I was there for a year. When it was time to leave, I didn't want to go. I was like, I don't want to go home. I hate my life. And I was thinking, like, what can I give how can I bribe myself to make myself want to go back to the United States? And so this was part of my 5-year plan. I said, I'm gonna buy a Porsche. I'm gonna order it while I'm over here in Italy. And when I get home, it'll be right there for me, waiting. And that's worth going home for. I told myself that, yeah, that's definitely worth going home for. So me and my friend Jackie went over to the Porsche dealership to look at Porsches, pick up my car, and drive off the lot. And I had custom, you get to, when you buy a new car like that, you get to decide what color it is and what kind of tires you want. I mean, everything. But that was my entrance back into the United States. One of the things that I realized in Italy, I knew that there was racism in Europe. Like, where is there not any racism? But I felt protected from it a bit. I felt like I had a bit of a buffer because, it's upper middle class, or because I was at this American Academy in Rome where, everybody wants to go, but most people can't. So it was interesting, one of the things that happened to me to just sort of do a check to make sure that I remembered that I was Black was I would have to go to this grocery store in Trastevere, and this woman, I mean, every time I peeked in there and saw her at the counter, at the cashier, I'd be like, right? Because she was such a pill. And she didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak any Italian, even though I took classes. And when I would get there to check out, she would like talk to me in Italian, and I would say, I don't speak Italian. And she knew, I mean, what? Don't I look American? So she would get frustrated with me. And I had these, maybe they were apples or something that I had bought, or potatoes that were in a bag. And there was this fancy machine on, which was all in Italian, and I didn't know how to weigh anything. So I just hit the button and a label came out, and I slapped it on the apples, and she was like, no, 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 no. And so I'm like, I do not speak Italian again, I said. And she was just really, really mean. And so I said, just forget it. Just keep the potatoes, keep it. We had the line stacking up of people. And, but she was not giving me a break. She's like, no, you go back over there. So finally, a manager came over who spoke English, and she said, oh, you didn't do it right. You have to do it this way, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she did it for me, and I was able to check out. But that woman was a horror to me every time, because it was the closest grocery store that we could go to. And we didn't have cars or anything, you could take a taxi, but that's, extra. And, that was one of the times when I said to myself, it doesn't matter how much money you have, how prestigious the American Academy is as a fellow, you're still Black first. My first sale of a painting happened with a dear friend of mine right before I went to graduate school at Penn State. And I had these little bottles because I looked at Morandi a lot, and I love those little still lives. And still lives, that's how I learned to paint. So I pulled out all my still lives and had them leaning up against the side of my raggedy car. And I said, which one do you like? And she picked out these bottles. And she said, well, how much do you want for it? And I said, $25? And she said, what, $25? And I said, 15? And she was like, I'll give you 100. So that was the sale. It was the first time I sold a painting. And then, after I finished graduate school and started being an artist, and I had a gallery dealer who was really good at selling paintings, but it's nothing like the feeling of something that you've created, something that you've given birth to, that's part of your story, but it's universal enough to impact other viewers, impact them enough that they're willing and wanting to pay, $30,000, $60,000 for something you created. Your voice, your power. It's the biggest high in the world. Well, there are reoccurring themes in my work, which I think is sort of the basis of what's important to me. I want every work of art to, in some way, address my obsession with time, having it, not having it, marking time. I use calendars, clocks, anything that really marks time. I try to put into my paintings in one way or the other. And I also want to talk about, fragility and being vulnerable and not knowing everything, not having all the answers, but just like saying, being open and flexible enough to share who I am as a human being and not be afraid of judgment. Because you're going to get judged one way or the other, so you might as well just be your little self. So I paint my dad a lot because he's 95 years old, still living in Greensboro. And, he's fragile. I've watched him dwindle from a 250, 300-pound man to, I'm embarrassed to say, he weighs less than I do. I mean, he's like 140 pounds, which is like unbelievable. So he's frail. I'm interested in talking about that. I'm interested in painting my sister Renee because she too is in the margin and quite vulnerable, as a 61-year-old woman that has epilepsy and has the mindset of a third grader. I'm interested in painting myself because I am really the easiest subject to capture because I'm available. And my best friend Kim sent me this little doll. There's a boy doll and a girl doll that she found on an auction site. And she said, I think you really like these. So she bid it on them, and nobody else bid it on them. I think she paid $35. And they came in the mail. And the minute I saw Gracie, that's who I named her Gracie. The minute I saw her, I was like, oh my God, that's who I am inside, that little black girl that grew up in the projects, that's, sort of straddles two worlds, always helping people out and things like that. So she shows up in a lot of my paintings, basically as, the little me, if you will. So I've never considered myself a political artist, just because it's not what I'm interested in. But, after George Floyd, prior to that, I knew it was happening, and I felt so helpless about what could I do to, make that better or bring attention to it. And at the time, I felt like I couldn't do anything. So People for the American Way contacted me last year and said, we are going to do a big campaign saying enough of Trump. And they said, will you participate? And I was like, okay, because I thought enough. And they said, we're gonna make billboards and posters, and we're gonna hang them in swing states like Georgia, like Wisconsin, like Michigan, North Carolina, and there was six of them. I can't remember the other two. Anyway, I made this painting, Enough. This is my good friend Kim. This is her son, and I made this painting of enough, enough, enough. And so this painting was hanging everywhere. It was like a poster or a billboard in all those places. And then it said, get out and vote, basically. So, so it was pretty powerful how it caught on and all of that. So I made another painting of my cousin Lonnie that had Black Lives Matter on a t-shirt. And People for the American Way said, we want to use that too. And so they did. And he was all over on billboards too. So it's really sort of a powerful thing. In every state that they hung, my work, it went blue this past year. So I was like, oh, maybe there is power in art politically, right? Even though I know political artists, anyway. So, so yeah, so I'm interested in continuing that. This piece, Black Lives Matter, is another painting that I made that, I mean, it's such an ugly, I have some white friends that say, why do Black Lives Matter? Why all lives matter? And I think, good Lord, we got a long way to go, y'all, when it comes to explaining to our brothers and sisters about why we have to say Black Lives Matter. And we have to say that because this society looks like, or is acting like, we're disposable as people. And that's why we have to say it. Yeah, we know all lives matter. They do, but all lives aren't getting shot by policemen or tased or have a knee on their neck for 9 minutes. So I made this painting, and part of this anti-racism committee here at Duke, and the hope is that what they've asked is that they want to use this image to make banners to hang all up throughout campus to really say that as a university, Black lives do matter. Well, I'm currently teaching a class called Art Business Strategies here at Duke. And what I'm really trying to do, it's 8 of us, it's all women in the class. And what I'm trying to do is to help them unlearn some things. Like, you're in the background, you're a woman, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get paid as much as a man. But make them aware that, if one woman can get paid more than a man, then all of us as women can get paid more than a man. And I tell them all the time, we got to rise together. Not just one at a time. We have to uplift each other and not be competitive with each other or fighting or not caring about each other in a way that makes everybody lose, except for white males, that is. So I really believe in being a mentor. I believe in giving back. I believe in, I think the best advice I've ever been given as an artist is to keep doing what you do. Be your authentic self all the time. Even when people say, I'm not gonna buy that, or that's ugly, that's not gonna match my sofa. That's just not your audience. But you do have an audience, because if you are putting out there, if you're willing to be open and flexible, and you're putting your authentic self out there, your audience will come and they will support you, right? So your job is to really just keep doing you. Just keep being you.
I have 2 quick questions. So the next one is, you are a caretaker. And in fact, when I think about your project that you're working on now, it's about bringing other artists along. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about bringing artists along and what this project that you're working on is now? That you will not only work there, you will live there.
Well, I got a security system. Let's just get that straight. So, this happened during COVID. It was happening before COVID, but it became crystal clear to me during COVID that I wasn't doing enough. Being a professor for the last 25, 30 years, it's not enough to make a difference, I was thinking. So it's like, what can I do? So I bought 11 acres of land in Chapel Hill in the middle of nowhere. And I'm building a house that's almost complete. It's been going on for over a year now. And I am going to have an artist residency there. where one person of color or a woman can come and stay for a month. It's a non-for-profit, so it's completely free to the artist. The artist will get a stipend, they'll get a studio space, and they'll get a place to live. And I'm going to teach them professional development. I'm going to teach them how to get a seat at the table and not be too shy to ask for what they're worth and need. So I've named this place Rennie's Place after my sister Renee, and I'm hoping to open next year and have about five artists per year come through there and stay. Well, legacy is very important to me, and I think having a legacy of being in academia for 25 years is valid. It just wasn't enough for me. I really needed to help brown people and women find their strength and discover who they are and make them feel worthy of all the success that could potentially come their way. So my legacy will be Rennie's Place, because I know women are going to go through there and brown people are going to go through there, and it's going to make a difference in their lives. And they're not going to have to worry about, I've made some of my best artwork at residencies over the years. And, it's a hardship if you're poor, because you have to pay for your life here, you got to pay for your life there. Most of them do not come with stipends to help, cut that cost in any way. And it's hard to leave your wife or leave your husband and your children, if you have any. So my legacy, I want it to be that she fought for women, she fought for brown people, she reached back, and she carried those people along with her. Growing up, I did not see. First of all, we didn't go to museums because we couldn't afford it. That was like another trip on the bus that cost money. And I really didn't start going to museums until I was in college, on school field trips. And there was never anything in the museums that reflected who I was, image-wise. So, I still get goosebumps because the Mint Museum has a painting of mine called Dora's Dance, and they have it on display all the time. So it's a large painting of me dancing and being happy, but I'm in blackface. And I love going in there and standing beside it, and this is my painting. This is my painting, because it's so meaningful, not only to me, but for other Black people who are coming through that museum, and they're seeing a reflection of themselves, and they're saying, okay, you did it. Maybe my little cousin can do it, or maybe I can do it. And it's just powerful. It's powerful, to share yourself in that way in the world. I think the one thing that I learned being in Italy was that I just have to be more open and more flexible in who I am, because I have so many blessings that are waiting to come for me, waiting for me to put on my big girl panties and accept them. Now that's a big issue, because I can do it for one thing, and then one time, and then the next day it's like, I can't do it again. So I have to talk I gotta say, this is your legacy. So, pony up. Pony up.